Hey guys, what's going on? It's Evan here, and today we're going to look at Core Framework. It just released a couple days ago, and it's looking really promising. So Core Framework is a visual CSS framework. It allows you to create, customize, and control just about every aspect of your project with a visual interface. Yes, I read that off the homepage. So what is Core Framework and why is it different? Well, let me first state that the core of this framework is free. Yes, free. It's not quite that simple, but the core of it is free. The free version allows you to use their web app in the Core Framework dashboard to customize your CSS framework, and then you can add that framework to any style sheet you want. It does not have to be WordPress, it can be any site, any builder. As long as you have a style sheet, you can insert your framework right into that style sheet and get going. Having said that, if you are used to builders, you will see some limitations in terms of what you can do within the builder. For example, selectors, you will not be able to view your selectors when you're choosing classes, and that's why you will get the best experience in supported builders with the add-ons. They allow you to reference your classes within the builder instead of having to use a cheat sheet every time you need to add a class. It may not seem like a lot, but having to use two screens all the time while you're developing or referencing a style sheet can be troublesome to say the least. So free. Are you worried about the free model? Well, I am a little bit, but it gets better. It's really important for developers to have continual support. In case there's any issues, they're there to support the product after purchase and help fix any bugs that come along. But if they're giving away their product for free, they're not going to have continual support. But I think the difference here for Core Framework will come down to their marketplace, where users will be able to add functionality to their new CSS framework. And that's just it. It's one of the coolest features on the Core Framework roadmap is their marketplace. And according to their Facebook group, the marketplace will feature templates and UI kits from the Core Framework team and community members. So if I understand this correctly, this means that community members will be able to submit and possibly sell their templates. A huge feature that's going to really drive engagement for this framework. The marketplace will feature templates and UI kits for Gutenberg, Bricks, Oxygen, WooCommerce, and even Motion.page. So if you're familiar with the design sets that OxyNinja has, I'm assuming it's going to be quite similar. That being said, if you've already purchased OxyNinja for Oxygen, as of the date of this video, you have the ability to receive the Oxy add-on for free. You also get a 30% discount code for the Bricks Builder add-on. If you want to redeem your free version of the Oxygen add-on, I've included a link in the description below. With that being said, let's get started with the add-ons first. First, you're going to go to your Core Framework dashboard and download the WordPress plugin. Next, you're going to go to Marketplace and purchase the add-on you wish to use. Once you've purchased the add-on, you're going to be provided with a license. You're going to want to take this license, and when we hop into WordPress, you're going to go to the Core Framework settings and insert this license. With that being said, let's hop into WordPress. First, we're going to install the Core Framework plugin. Once we have the plugin installed, then we're going to go to Core Framework from the dashboard, and within Core Framework, we're going to click on Add-Ons. From here, you'll be prompted to enter your license key. Once you've inserted your license key, you're going to click Activate and then Push Changes. Very important, hit Push Changes. If you don't, your add-on will not activate. The next thing we're going to do is hop into Preferences. From your Preferences page, there's a couple settings you want to look at. Number one is your min screen width and your max screen width. For the max screen width, you want to pair it to make sure it's the same as your page width in your builder. In Oxygen, I'm using 1366 pixels, so I'm going to change this from 1400 to 1366. Next, we can look at the root font size. Now, by default, it's set to 62.5%. You have the option to change it between 62.5% to 100%. The easiest way to understand this is just a simplification of math. By default, 1 rem equals 16 pixels. By changing it to 62.5%, we're simplifying the math and changing one rem unit from 16 pixels to 10 pixels. It's just easier to deal with, easier to calculate, and that's why it's used. But there are some limitations when it comes to, say, browser extensions or third-party apps that the user might have in the browser. So while it certainly makes things more useful and easier to understand, there are drawbacks to using it. The whole interface gives you great customization over your framework and your website. Let's look at the colors first. To start off, they give you a primary color, secondary color, tertiary, with a lot of customization built right into the framework. If we click the color, we get a color palette that pops up, and we can change the color palette as needed. We can change the color units from HSLA to hex to RGB. And if we click the drop down, we're also given shades and tints. In addition, we can also adjust the amount of shades and tints we have for each. If we want to add more colors, we can do so by clicking this plus sign right here on the left. And lastly, if we want to create another group, we can click this button here, which allows us to create another color group for whatever our need may be. Now, typography. This was an interesting one when I looked at it first. As you can see at the very top here, we have our variables, and we can use our variables as our unit if we want to. If we look at our H tags here, our H1 through H6 are using variables with different text sizes. What's also great here, with our H tags, we're not targeting specific classes here. We're targeting this element, which means you don't have to put a class on your headings anymore. If you insert an H1, well, your H1 is going to be output using the variable that the H1 is selected. In this case, it's using text 4XL. But if you are using this inside of your builder, just know that when you have a heading, you do not have to add an H1 class. It will do it automatically. Looking at the rest of the typography, we have text modifiers, we have text alignment. Looking at the spacing, we have automatic fluid scale, which is quite great. It gives us the ability to change based on the device. So we have a mobile and a desktop spacing. We have our margin and our padding classes, and we have a gap class as well. But one of the coolest features in here is the components. It allows you to adjust components right in the interface. For example, if we want to look at our button, we can change the CSS elements by clicking Edit. And if we look on the right hand side, we can make adjustments to what is already there, or click the plus bubble at the bottom left and add our own property and value to it. From here, you can also change your hover and focus and your different buttons that you have as well, whether it's a small button, a large button. This is great because in your builder, all you need to do is insert a button and put the BTN class on it, and no matter what, you have a uniform button every time. And in addition to what is already here in the components, you can scroll down and you can also click the plus sign and create your own component. Looking at our layouts, we have CSS grid layouts that we can adjust. We have automatic columns, simple flex layouts, alignments, self-alignments, grid column span, grid column start, grid row span, grid row start, width, and height. And if we want to add our own to our layouts, we can add some at the bottom here as well. The Design tab features your border radius variables, your border radius selectors, your border selectors, your box shadow variables, your shadow selectors, your opacity, image fit, backdrop blur, filters, and again, you can add your own selectors here as well. And finally, under Other, we have utility classes, we have positioning, cursors, and we can create our own variables and selectors here as well. Now, let's hop into the free part. Let's go back to Core Framework and open up Web App. Once you've made your adjustments to the framework, you're going to click Preview CSS. From this screen, you can download, export, copy your CSS, or copy minified. If you click the download CSS file, you're going to download a style sheet. If you click the export, you're going to download a .core file, which you can then upload to any installation of Core Framework within WordPress. But if we click copy CSS and go to a builder that doesn't have Core Framework built in, for this example, I'm going to use Oxygen without Core Framework at all. So no add-on and no Core Framework. We can then go to Style Sheets, add new style sheet. We can name it whatever we like. Paste our framework styles directly in. And bingo, you have a free CSS framework right in your builder. Now there are some downsides. As you can see here, if I try to select shadow, it's not going to populate in the selectors field. And that's because Core Framework doesn't have the add-on installed and won't pull into Oxygen. In order to work with the free version of Core Framework, you'd likely have to have the cheat sheet on your secondary monitor. Is it the end of the world? Probably not. Is it something I'm going to do? No. For me, having to use a second screen is probably going to add 20 to 30 minutes per page that I build just trying to look up different selectors. So for me, it's not going to make sense. The add-on for me will pay itself off in efficiencies over time. But if you're just getting started and you want to learn how to use a framework and you have a second monitor, this is a great solution to learn. So overall, I think Core Framework certainly has its place. If you're not familiar with CSS frameworks, it does take a little bit of time to get used to them. But once you do, your websites come out looking uniform, nice, and clean. So it's definitely worth the investment getting into a CSS framework. Based on everything that I've seen with Core Framework, I highly recommend the foundation. It's a great start. It's something that you can build onto. For the add-ons, I certainly recommend it if you're using Oxygen, Bricks, or Gutenberg. The add-ons do provide efficiencies that you will save over time just having those selectors. And once that marketplace hits, I think this is going to be game-changing. Once the community gets involved and you have design sets coming from Core Framework and from the community, I think you're really going to see this ecosystem kind of evolve and grow. I would love to hear from you. If you've already tried it, what did you like? What didn't you like? Let me know in the comments below. And if you don't mind, hit that subscribe button. I'm going to try to make more videos like this, kind of evaluating and going through each plugin. That way you can add value to the websites that you're building. With that being said, hope you have a wonderful day.